So how do I know if I hate myself? I know I hate myself if I'm unkind to myself, if I'm unkind to others. I'm kinder to other people than to myself. I habitually lie to myself and or others. I often wear masks to disguise my ugliness, like my if I have an ugly personality. This may not apply to all of us, but it may apply to some of us. I have low self-esteem. I know I hate myself when I get jealous and envious easily. I'm an angel outside, but a devil within. I know people like that. I habitually engage in negative self talk. You know, that self talk where you say, oh gosh, I'm so stupid. You do something and you say, oh gosh, how are you so stupid? You know, things like that. I constantly fault find with other people. I self harm in all kinds of different ways. What kinds of ways can people self-harm that you guys are aware of? How can people self-harm?
Um, by eating a certain way, eating,
Yeah,
having a certain diet.
yeah,
Um, well, like hanging themselves and stuff like that, cutting themselves.
yes.
Um, I think that's basically all that I know of so far.
Yeah, that's a good list. Anybody want to add to that? No?
Well, it's the dialogue that the internal dialogue you have with yourself
Right.
that you're not worthy, and other
Correct.
people can make you feel that way and train you to think that way.
Correct. That's true. Yeah, you know, like that internal dialogue where we are really harsh with ourselves could be a form of self-harm. You're right. It may not be physical, but it's psychological and it's emotional. That's true. Some people, you know, alcoholics, you know, people who drink a lot and or people who are bulimic, you know, you eat and then you bring everything up, you know, that kind of disorder, or the opposite, anorexia, where you're not eating, you know, things like that. Those could be all forms of self-harm, and it could be an indication that we don't love ourselves. Or another indication is that I constantly run from self-confrontation. You know, like if somebody tells you I noticed such and such about you, and you would be like, um, you might be quick to deny things that people tell you that you know are true, or you may think something about yourself, but it's really painful, so you wouldn't want to think about it or accept it. That's like running away from self confrontation. So that's like, you know, when I think of myself not as a gemstone, but a speck of sand or a stone. Oh, Nicole, nice. Okay. I know I hate myself when I hate the sound of silence. Do you know people like that? Like they just cannot stand to be by themselves with their own thoughts, just with silence around them. They must have, I don't know, like the radio on, music, them talking all the time. Do you know people like that? Yeah, it's like they just cannot stand silence. I don't know. I see Roxanne shaking her head. What do you think?
No, well, I love silence. I can't get enough of it because my house is always full of noise. So whenever I get silence, I love it.
Right. Nice. Nice. I love silence as well. That's why I tend to be up in the wee hours of the morning. So people who tend to hate silence tend to dislike their own company, because when there's a lot of silence, that's when they hear their own voice condemning them about things. I think that's what happens. I could be wrong, but I think that's why sometimes people do not like silence. They're just uncomfortable with their own company. Um, they always need to have noise around them. I tend to be quarrelsome and grumpy. I'm a diehard perfectionist. So some people say, well, I'm just a perfectionist. But apparently, being an extreme perfectionist could actually be a sign that you don't like yourself very much. Because that's an impossible standard to reach when you're an absolute perfectionist. And I guess I guess when you're like that, nothing will ever be good enough and you will never be good enough. I guess that's maybe the logic. I'm not too sure if that's a logic or if somebody else has a different perspective on that, but that's what I think. Um, and then if somebody's this is the one I think that's really gut wrenching. If somebody says, I feel God couldn't love someone like me, that's really, really harsh. I think, one thing is God loves everybody, nobody's so far gone that God can't help them or doesn't love them. So when we think I'm a pebble and not a gemstone, we may think these things.